All right, good morning. Are you all? All right, and last week I did the Adamic covenant, and today I'm doing the Noahic. I don't know how to pronounce those things. Fran isn't here in the front row, so that's just exposing Fran's absence. But that's for her and God to sort out. The Noahic, the covenant with God, okay, is what we're going to look at this morning. And it's from Genesis chapter 5 up until Genesis chapter 9. You can stretch it to about 11. But that's the portion where the Bible speaks about Noah. Who knows anything about Noah? Some of us, the animals went in 2 by 2. It's also wrong, but anyway, the animals went in 7 by 7. It's Noah. We all know Noah. And then Hollywood tried to do something spectacular with it and failed. Spectacularly, yeah. But the story of Noah is very close to Adam and Eve, actually. So it's Adam and Eve, and you know the chapter that says, Genesis chapter 5 says, and God created them, male and female, He created them. In His image He created them. Right after that, it flows into Noah. So it's in terms of recorded in the Bible, it's in close proximity when you hear about Adam and Eve and their children and what the boys got up to. And then they had no boys at home, and all they were left with was emptiness. No, they had another son. What was his name? Seth. That's it. Good name for parents here. And if you have any sons, or if you want to name your son, this is chapter 5 and 6, a good place to pick up biblical names. Names like Kenan and Jared is in there. Those are contemporary, aren't they? There's also Arun Prashad, if that's your flavor. But anyway. So in essence, this Noah covenant is this covenant by God to preserve life. And in the covenant, God says, I will myself to never act like I did before. One of the only times when we hear God put limits on Himself. In essence, He's not limiting Himself. He's just saying that I will never go there again. He can, but He's saying, because of my covenant, it's the title of the series. I'm not playing games here with you. Because of my covenant, I won't do what I did before. Last week we looked at Adam. And this one was sealed with the spilling of blood. And in essence, where we were blown, then restored in relationship by the spilling of blood. We looked at in that thing about the vocab that surrounds covenant. If you were here, you would, I hope, remember it. Because the vocab I said was the let us. That precedes a lot of the covenants that God has made. And in essence, we are born in covenant when we are made. And we are born from covenant as humanity, and then redeemed by covenant for relationship with our covenantal God. A supernatural God that transmuted particles of stone and flow through a heart of flesh. Wow. I hope you say wow, not because of how well I've worded that, but wow. That is why we'll take your heart. We can bank on it. It's not just an emotional transformation. It is a physical thing where we can see you have been with Jesus because you look differently. Have you ever experienced that? We believe for that after worship this morning. We're going to run into family members and we're going to see that God has changed particles, rearranged it, taken elements in their lives and turned it into something for His glory. And I last week well enough that it made you want to tie your life to this covenant-making and covenant-keeping God in a new way. Because in essence, covenant is a formal and binding, usually formal and legal binding contract. But it's more than that, because it is a relational establishment between parties. It is full of promises, expectations, conditions, and it is normally sealed by a symbol. And in most of the cases with God, there is life that flows, because God describes the blood that flows as the life of the being. He says you can't eat that animal with the life in it. It must drain off the blood. So there are parties involved with the covenant. Woohoo! Okay, expected a bit more. It's not those parties. It's also not political parties. There is no green or red or blue or anything like that. It is parties as in groups or individuals. And before we get further into the Noah thing, it's important for you to understand that occasionally covenants were made between equal people. I think I mentioned that last part. For instance, two kings. There's a kingdom of equal strength, and they know they can't beat each other, so what do? We covenant with each other. And because we covenant, we are at peace. We are in relationship, and the relationship shall be marked by peace. Flowing of blood. But also, covenants was often made between somebody greater, somebody lesser. Like Molly's greater, Johan lesser. Because let's face it, I married up. And it often has a tone to it, this covenant. This covenant is where the greater bestows blessing and favor upon the lesser. And it either seems magnanimous or it seems a little bit conceited, because I am the greater and I'm now in covenant with you, so I'll do you a favor. No? Yeah. It could seem like that. You could read it like the other tone is that, do certain things to earn the favor that I want to give you. And those are conditional things, where you need to do this, this, and this, and therefore you will me. Example of that, the nations of Israel and Judah fell into sin and depravity, and God says other nations will come and take your stuff and take you into captivity. Some of the kings of the other nations said to the kings of Judah and Israel, you will give me X amount of money and slaves every year as tribute. And therefore, our covenant will stand. I will not come and annihilate you. You understand? So conditional and then unconditional. Now, covenants with God, thank God, are normally the unconditional, magnanimous ones. Where God just says, I am who I am, and because I know who I am, I will do unto you what I've promised, without any expectation. Yeah, oftentimes. Have you heard this? All right. And today, as we look at this covenant with Noah, this is the one I probably want us to land on, to understand that there's this unconditional covenant that God makes. So last week, the thing I spoke about, God, our series name, was a sub-theme of the vocab of covenant, that which surrounds covenant. This week, it is the main thing, covenant God, with a sub-theme, the heart in covenant with our covenant God. Is that all right? Make sense? Okay, I'm going to make you guys stand up and dance so you can wake up. But before we get there, I'm going to do a little bit of clarity on Genesis just so that I can get all those nagging things out of the room. One of them is, how many animals went into the ark? Where are my actuaries? Where are my accountants? Just quickly count all the species of animal, and then pairs of them in sevens went in. Like, okay. And then where are the engineers and the architects? How big was the ark to do that? No architects, no engineers. Okay, I also struggle with that. But let's start at the very beginning. We don't know the exact timeline of when this history of Noah is recorded, because the Bible was written under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, in a context and a time by a person who was given the reality and the history of this for the and time. So this was written so that the people back in the day then, in Israel's time, could read it and understand it. You understand this, eh? Okay. Appropriate for the readers. They used contemporary language. They used contemporary imagery. They used what I call literary vehicles and styles that the context they were writing into was familiar with. And let's call it contemporary linguistics that they used. How would it be nowadays? It's when I use a South Africanism to talk to you because we are South Africans. And then I go to America and the South Africanism falls flat because their style of receiving information and how things are communicated is not like ours. So something similar like this happens. So I'm not exactly, do we know the exact detail and specifics? Not exactly. Are we okay with that? That being said, it is recorded from. Perfect. The second thing, it would help us to concede that we don't really understand in full detail what was meant with the whole earth was flooded. It would seem that there might have been a localized flooding, or when we read about the flooding in KZN, but here in Gauteng we are scorching. There's flooding in one area and there's different weather in another. It could be that. I don't know how you read the Bible, and I'm not going to say localized flooding makes a bit more sense in my mind. It's a bit more plausible. This is the reason why. Because the size of the ark could not take hippos. The ark as described here in the history, the recording of history, wasn't big enough. Because even though we are taught at primary and in preschool and at Sunday school that the animals went in 2 by 2, some of the verses say 2 of them, a pair, a male and a female, every clean animal had to go in 7 of them. Now that must be a linguistical literary style because it makes no sense to me. But it would seem that many animals went in. If we just park at 2, which might not be the number per species, how big must an ark be? But if we go localized, that in this area there were only hyraxes and giselles and gazelles, and that was a joke, people. It makes a bit more sense that the ark could contain the animals of the area, the species in the area. Maybe there weren't elephants close to the gates of Eden. I don't know. Okay, everybody happy with how vague it is and how we have to rest in that. The second thing, not the second thing, I think I'm like on the 4th one. Thank you for pointing that out. The flood was, however, recorded to be so severe that it took half a year for the water to start to recede, and then another half a year, roughly, for it to be habitable again. If you come to our house on New Year's Eve with a slide going into the pool, right around our swimming pool is morass. It's mud. That takes about a week to clear because we have spilled so much water and had so much fun. Now, how much water must there be for it to take 150 days to just clear and then 150 days to just dry up so that you don't sink into mud. It seems like it was a massive flood. Can we agree on that? Okay. The Hebrew text is translated, and the translators that was inspired by God to translate the Bible for us from Aramaic and from Hebrew into English, they use words like God said He wants to destroy. He wants to blot out every living creature. That the water fell for. Have you ever had I had an idea to put up a video that plays rain and thunder behind me all the time. So you can feel like 40 minutes what it sounds like. They had it for 40 days. That doesn't mean it rained in the day and stopped in the night. 40 days mean night is it bucketed. The Bible also records He closed. Now, I don't know if the wells were receiving the water or something, but the water came out from, and it actually records that at that stage, that's how He watered the earth. It said that afterwards the water subsided, abated, receded, restrained, returned. These are words that are expressive. The writer uses words here that makes you feel hopeless. Like there's this is a disaster. Then the writer uses words that humanity had no restraint. Every act of their heart was evil heart and a fallen nature that was in spectacular display. Like the writer here records under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit what happened there, and it's not painting a pretty picture. Can you hear it? Oh, I want to say that in this covenant, what I can see is the emergence of 3 types of hearts. That's the reason for me calling it the heart in covenant. And the first one we have to look at is the heart of man. We see man's heart is recorded. It's open. It's on display. It's not like the writer had to go and search out. The words here, it says that it was in society. Good question. What was evident in society? Genesis 6 verse 5. The Lord saw the wickedness of man was great, and that every intention of the thought of his heart was only evil continually. What needs to happen for the observation of the heart of man like that? I think if I had to say to you guys, what do you think of the government of national unity? Will you be able to give an opinion? What would it sound like? From the face down, it looks like it's functioning, but they are inner turmoil, and this is happening, and there are factions and whatever, and the ANC blames the DA and. Would you be wrong? Probably not. What must go on in an entire society for it to be known as wicked? We're not talking about all of them have a green complexion, people. Wickedness. The Bible describes knowing the good thing to do and choosing not. What would that be? Knowing what people need and you can provide it and choosing not to. Sounds a lot like today. Every intention, every bent, and every thought of their hearts was continually evil. Anybody ever met an evil person? Okay, come now, man, guys. Don't talk about your mother-in-laws like that. Stop it. I'm talking like proper facts here. I think we've at least watched movies about this or docu-series. I'm just warning you. Don't immerse yourself in true crime documentaries all the time. It's not good for you. But watch one of them and you can sit and say, this is pure evil. Imagine a society that every person looks like that. This is what is described for us in Genesis. Genesis 6:6-8. God speaks. It's recorded what God said. It says, and the Lord regretted that he made man on the earth. It grieved him in his heart. The Lord said, I will blot out man, whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens. For I am sorry that I have made them. What needs to go on in a society for God to speak such things about a people? This is where we can all say, thank God we are not there yet. Next verse after that, Genesis 6, verse 8. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Man's heart was wicked, debauched, self-pursuant, in every way evil and continually. That's what evident. Can we hold on to man's heart in this way? Can you think of it that it was actually who they are? And then also, can you use the figurative idea of what the heart represents for us now as mankind? How we pursue wickedness. How we do evil. How we pursue ourselves. How we close ourselves off to the will of God. How we step out of obedience with our Father. How we maybe hear Him when we are willing to listen, to say, I'm not happy with what you are doing. I'm not destroying you yet, but hey, be careful, because this road is going to lead to Noah 6 verse 11 says, and God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh corrupted their way on the earth. God makes a statement to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Quite a statement. Where does evil start? Where does wickedness start? In the heart. Man's heart is on display. Can you see it? The second thing that happens, or second heart that we see, is Noah's heart. Not so. Genesis 6 verse 8 says, Noah found favor in the eyes of God, in the eyes of the Lord. Noah 6 verse 9 says, these are the generations. Why do I keep saying Noah? Just follow me. It's the subtext of Genesis. It's called Noah. Noah 6 verse 9 says, Genesis 9 says, these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God. And Noah had 3 sons. Succinct, clear. Now, if I had to ask, is the heart of Noah, I'm careful to use this word, in comparison to the heart of man. But there's this heart, man's heart is evil. And now we hear, is among them one guy whose heart looks differently. What is righteousness? And of course, righteousness is right standing before God. So Noah had to do something that was like God was pleased with. So what would it look like today? Maybe a man who is kind, a man who is generous, a man who stands for principle, who's disciplined in what he does, a man who raises his kids. It sounds a lot like what is described in the New Testament, doesn't it? What is those people? What are those people that you are drawn to that have a heart of hard to hang out with as a Christian? Those people that build you up. Those people who make you feel that there's hope, who gives you wisdom, who even risk the friendship by saying what you are doing is going to lead to death. Am I describing what could be a heart that stands out? I want to say when there's such evil in a society, a simple good deed could also stand out. Like if there are just a lot of people stealing and pillaging and going for everything, one does the right thing could stand out and we could say that is a good man. But that does not before God. You have to see that no one make it. Like, there was evidence on his life that he was standing for something different than the people that he lived with. Where is your heart lie in this? Can people look at you and say, I recognize a heart like Noah? A heart like that one civil servant who once got me my passport in time. A good man. My heart, your heart, I can see looks a little bit like Jesus. I want to make a little statement now here when we speak about the heart of Noah. So heart of man, heart of Noah. And I want to say that one lesson that I see here is that sacrifice precedes covenant. Sacrifice precedes, goes before covenant. Now, I can easily take this message and say, do the right thing, God will give you a covenant. Because it seems like that, doesn't it? If we do the right thing like no covenant comes, it's yours. But it's not as simple as that, because God is not in the, oh, you work for what I have to give business. It is an unconditional covenant we are dealing with, which means God says, I give without obligation on you. But what happens here, sacrifice precedes covenant. Because I'm thinking, this man started a boat when there was no rain and no river. So there's no evidence that people mocked him, but in my mind, he was mocked. Like we are. Christian. Okay, I'm the only one to get that. Maybe it's because I'm a pastor. But there is that idea that he's sacrificing something of himself to step into obedience of doing something that seems out of the ordinary. That seems absurd. I mean, like raising children in a Christian way. Absurd. Like disciplining your it's just absurd what they want to do. Can you hear the absurdity of society today? But Noah says, no, I'm going to stand for something different. He sacrifices that. The other thing that he does is it says later on in Genesis, see, I got it right. In Genesis, it says that he became a man of the soil. He became a farmer, which means something different. Am I wrong in interpreting it that way? I was in court pastor. There was something before I became. And before, I don't know, maybe a carpenter. Maybe something. Maybe he was the tax collector. I don't know. Plumber. But he has to stop doing that, which is his vocation, to go and build an ark, which is 140 meters long. Like, there wasn't people that you could phone, hey, board and timber, please deliver. Okay, sir, when do you want it? Here at 133 on First. Okay, Shabbat Shalom. Next day, here arrives the timber. Okay, come on, guys. It's party at 1:33 on first. We need to break down a story. Him, his 3 sons. And I'm pretty sure with that task, they roped in the wives and everybody they could find. Maybe there were elephants, and the elephants were bringing their trunks, going, putting the wood in place. But you cannot build that thing in the time that just doing it as a hobby on the side. There had to be some effort. So what does he sacrifice? Probably his leisure time, his family time, or he makes family time out of it, or he goes into half-day job or freelance. No, I don't do plumbing full-time now. I'm freelance. I don't look after the sheep all day. We just trust the Lord that they won't get away. I'm half day here, half day there. I divide my time now because working from home and working at the office. This is, can you see this picture? Noah is sacrificing maybe income. The other thing that happens is, Noah has no idea how this is going to happen. I cannot find a definitive scripture that says, and God told Noah, on this day, when the ark is done, then water will come from the bottom, and all never seen before, raindrops, we'll call them raindrops, will start falling from the sky. So what does Noah do? He works blindly in obedience according to the instructions given to him by God. You know what a sacrifice that is for me as a person. Oh, I love to know what's going to happen. I love to know about the future. I love to know there's elements that I can control. Who's with me? Where's my Martha? Say amen. Amen. We have little lists, and we know that we have to do it now, because if we don't do this now, the next milestone is not going to fall in place. And then if we don't have the bow or the bow ready of the boat, whatever it's called, then we can't build this. Yes, he sacrifices that. He just does every day what he's supposed to do in obedience to the design that God had given him, not knowing what is coming or what's going to happen. This man is building a boat. There's a quote from Spurgeon in one of his sermons that says, "The worldling blesses God while he gives him plenty, but the Christian blesses him when he smites him. He believes him to be too wise and too good to be unkind. He trusts him where he cannot trace him, looks up to him in the darkest hour, and believes that all is well." In contemporary language, somebody put the quote in this. He says, "God is too good to be unkind, too wise to be mistaken. And when you cannot trace his hand, you can trust his heart." Can you hear this? Can you see how Noah steps into this? I cannot trace your hand. I don't know what the heck is going on. But I know your heart, Lord, because I'm in right standing with your heart. And as the heart of man is so with God, that so of Noah is so aligned with God that he garners favor. The third heart in covenant. Oh, yes, Lord. The heart of God. Because I tell you, if you can easily fall into the category, just stop doing what is evil. And you can fall into the category, just stop it, and you will be in relationship with God. But that is never how it flows, because the heart that is restored from God in you is first, and then the action flows out of that. So what I've chosen, the third heart, is actually the first in importance. I'm good for time. You can pay attention. Now, I first read this thing about God saying, my heart was upset with these people. I wanted to kill them. I wanted to destroy them. And I thought, you know what happens with me as a dad? When something in my kids, when they do something wrong, it rises up in me. But not necessarily always that I want to kill them. Occasionally. But because I can see that they are living a lie. I can see that they have given themselves to something which is not authentic theirs. I can see they start to talk like another child on the playground or act like another child. And I get angry. I believe this is God's anger. Birthed out of his character, which is wrath. He rises up against sin. And God is the increase as for the child. So when he says here that he's so angry with a deeply tender father heart that he's saving for you, I want you again. Some parents say, yes, please. I can give you a little tip. A tap on the forehead resets them quickly. I read this the first time and I thought, this is an angry heart. And the second time and the third time I was like, but there is a tenderness behind it that we so often miss. See what happens here? This is the greater heart that is present, pursuing the lesser heart in this situation. And a covenant unconditionally is made between the greater and the lesser. History sets the scene for something that could be identified as covenant conditions. There's a lesser heart who is desperate, and there's a greater heart who says, I am, I can, I'm coming. I want to see in this heart of God, I've noticed 4 things. And because I'm very, very clever with words, I looked for 4 P's. Because P also stands for pearls. I'm giving you a string with 4 pearls today. Pearls of wisdom. Is that all right? God's heart perceives. God's heart promises. God's heart purposes. And God's heart preserves. We see this covenant God of ours perceives. He notices things. And this week he noticed my heart. And every little piece of self that I lived into this week, he perceives. I want to believe that he glances away me so much, and he's just like, quickly, my boy, I don't want to see what you do. Molly's and I had this idea that when there was a soiled nappy, the first one that smelled it has to change it. I learned to block out, my eyes could tear. I would not acknowledge that child is a stinky. We also had this, like the little ones are at preschool, at Sunday school, hey. So this is the thing. We warn only once, and then discipline. This was our commitment to each other, to hold each other to account to this. But then sometimes I would say to Molly, my love, I've already cautioned. Please, if I go now, I have to discipline, and I don't want to discipline. And just child protective services are only present in America, so I can say it here. We did do corporal punishment. We would just get the attention. Never in anger. But sometimes I just had to say, Lord, Mala, I'm going to pretend I didn't see that. You just go and say, be careful. Dad can hear you. And I think I sometimes live in that where I'm like, God is just willfully not seeing what I'm doing. Now you all want to know, what did I do this week? I'm not going to tell you. Because my heart represents yours too. And you know exactly when I say that, because your week was the same as mine. There were things in this week that exposed your heart before ever perceiving God. And you get here this morning and you think, but how can I worship you? Because, Lord, you saw me. And He says, because I saw you, you can worship me. Come, enter. You see, because He doesn't just perceive us when we sin. He perceives us like He perceived Noah when we try. Because He wasn't. And you know what more? He notices you because you are His. He perceives. He sees you. The next pearl is the pearl of promise. Oh my goodness. You know how beautiful the story of Noah is. God sees him and He says, yo, my boy, you have my heart so much in you that I'd love to have a relationship with you. There wasn't, no one didn't live in the time when you could say, I see that hand. And now you do the sinner's prayer, Lord, I pray that you forgive me. I accept Jesus Christ. I can no longer live on my own. I only live by His strength, which is good. But Noah didn't have that little, he didn't have church back then. He didn't have Christianity come. So Noah, and just by the way, the law hadn't come either. So you could, this book, I tick this book. We're in relationship. God, in you, my likeness and my image, I want like a deep relationship with you. I will establish a covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, your sons, and their wives with you. I will establish, because I notice you. He makes a promise. Now, this one ties up with the last pearl because he then makes the covenant. It's not an empty promise with God. But anyway, cool. So God promises displayed. And the third pearl, He sees Noah has a heart like his, and he's like, I cannot wipe out my image here. I made it. So what am I going to do? Noah built the ark like this. 300 cubits, 50 cubits, gopher wood. What is gopher wood, by the way? I think it was very tall trees, I would say. A low second deck, a third deck, a door, window. He gives him purpose and design. And more than that, He gives him something to do in the midst of evil and wickedness. I think some of us get up to evil and wickedness because we don't purpose enough. In Afrikaans hulle sê, ledigheid is die duiwel se oorkussing. Take out your phone and Google it so I can see who's awake. It says when you do nothing, you are creating a person who can lie next to you and whisper in your ear, have you seen this thing? Have you tried that thing? I'm sure there's another box of chocolate. Can you hear him whisper? I think some of us are just listening too much to the whispers because we're It's coming from a Martha to a lot of Marys, I suppose. And then the last thing, the last pearl, is God preserves. In the second month, on the 27th day of the month, in Genesis 8, verse 14 to 19, the earth had dried out. It is now a year and 2 months later that they've been in this ark. And we want to complain about COVID. Imagine having been in an ark with animals. Some of us feel like we were. As I said that, I take it back. I won't judge you anymore. God said to Noah, go out from the ark, you and your wife and your sons and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing that is with you of all flesh, birds and animals and creeping things that creep on the earth, and that they may swarm on the earth and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. So Noah went out, his sons and his wives and his sons' wives with him. And every beast and every creeping thing and every bird and everything that moves on the earth went out by families from the ark. And God had preserved, because his heart is not to write out, it's to preserve. Sacrifice goes before covenant. What happens now is Noah goes out. Now, I've already painted the picture of what he sacrificed, but now he actually sacrifices something. He takes of the clean animals. Now, based on the facts here, there were only possibly 7 of clean animals. 1 female for every male, and then I think a spare, like the British Royals, the heir and a spare. How long do you think it's going to take those animals to repopulate in an area that has been decimated, wiped out, flooded, destroyed? Quite a while. I would venture, keep your animals alive, bruh. What does Noah do? He sacrifices of every clean animal 1, and every clean bird. And the Bible records sacrifices this. This has now gone from maybe abundance to barely enough. It takes a cow 9 months to 10 months to have another cow or a bull. It takes a sheep 5 months, a goat 5 months. It takes, okay, but we're not talking elephants. Okay, cool. They don't instantly reproduce. But he sacrifices us. It says, and that sacrifice before God rose up, and God smelled the aroma, and he was pleased. Because sacrifice precedes covenant. And as that happens, God says, now, Noah, listen, this is what I will do. Because he is a covenant God. I establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all flesh be cut off by waters of the flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all generations. That includes all future generations. That includes us. I've set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant. That is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the water shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the cloud, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. God said to Noah, this is the sign of my covenant that I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth. You see, Noah, his heart that attracts the attention of God, and God who sees and promises and purposes and preserves. He doesn't just seal Noah. He says it's for all generations. I had this idea of how amazing it must have been to see God create. Like Adam didn't even see God create. Like he created everything and then he placed Adam there. Like he never got to see what it looked like when he formed things together and he made flesh appear and And the closest that ever gets to something like this is probably Noah. Because in his lifetime, he decides water won't just come up the grass. I will water particles, gather them together, and cause them to rain. This never happened before. It is a new creation. It's a new phenomenon that happens. Can you, like, the closest we get to it is when we see a baby on a sonogram, on a sonar. And we can see there's now a heartbeat. And we see creation, or we see an animal give birth. But like this is something new that is seen. And this is what God does. He will do a new thing because He can do a new thing. Do you believe Him? The next phenomenon that we see is this bow. I think for some of us, if we had to make a sign, it would be a little bow, like Bo Peeps. Bow. God says there's a bow. And I'm just taking some liberty here. Can you hear me out? So it stops raining. 150 days, the water recedes. 150 days go past, the land becomes soft. Walk in. Now, how many of you have, after rain, a year and 2 months later, seen a rainbow? It still happens? Very odd that, hey? So my liberty I'm taking here is that God creates the refraction of light in signing this covenant. Because it would make 100% and it's just rain, because then we see bows, don't we? But at this stage, it's solid again. Like what clouds and what rain caused the rainbow? No, I don't know either. Thank you for your response. But this God of covenant is so serious about this that He will sacrifice His design. He made and He said, it is good. He made the water, said it is good. He watered the plants with the water from the earth. He said it is good. Now He changes it to rain to establish something. And then He says, now, up until now, nothing has been about. But I will quickly put some water droplets in the air, and I will quickly show you how they will take white light and turn it into a spectrum. Just to seal His covenant. Just to put a bow on the gift of relationship with Noah and all future generations. And a certain population thinks the rainbow is theirs. And God says, hi, bo. It is the sign and the seal of my relationship, my way with those that desperately, desperately need me. He literally causes light to bend as a new norm. He sacrifices the way He did things before and says, to prove that I'm for you, I will break what I made before and rebuild it. Okay, maybe I loved science, so maybe it speaks a lot to me. But it's like when you take a prism to break a beam of white light into the spectrum, and the next spectrum to receive that beam of light, the beams of light to bring it back to white light. I'm just going to prove a point quickly so that you can forever know I am for you in relationship. What Father do we have that will sacrifice His way, His nature in this way to come and fetch us? 3 hearts evident. The heart of man at its worst And this morning, our three hearts are evident. Your heart as part of unredeemed man, your heart as standing before God and saying, God, I'm redeemed, and God's heart in that, saying, I'm for you. So in closing, we're going to have communion. Is that all right? Maybe as I was preaching this morning, the most pronounced part of what I said was, that part of your heart that you want to hide. Those are the elements that represent the blood of Jesus and the body of Jesus that was broken so that your heart can be cleansed. It's a simple thing. You stand and you say, Lord, I'm yours, and before you I take this as a reminder that my sin has been washed and that I'm one with your body. And it's not that makes you clean. It is Him that makes you clean when you surrender to Him anew. Or maybe you stand here and you've got I can tick boxes. I'm amazing. I deserve good. Let this remind you that you did not purchase yourself. That blood was spilled for you, and you've got no claim of holiness in your own strength. And then the third thing, maybe you are okay with God and worship did it for you and you rinsed out your soul and you are okay with Him. Then that is the heart of God towards you that says, I will sacrifice myself, my own Son, part of the Trinity. I will give it up so that you can have relationship with me. So whatever heart you identified with this morning of covenant, this is where we meet our covenant God. This is the symbols that seal it for us. The blood that was sealed and sprinkled and flowed and poured out for us.